Mr. Hattori told me about the Tokoro Site. I'll go there soon. I'll send a letter with the details later. Komai. It's the summer of 1956, and a single telegram heralds major developments in Hokkaido archaeology. The sender is Kazuchika Komai, a professor in the Department of Archaeology at the University of Tokyo. The recipient is Nobutake Onishi of Tokoro Town. The Mr. Hattori in the telegram refers to Shiro Hattori, a professor in the Department of Linguistics at the University of Tokyo. The Tokoro River flows into the Sea of Okhotsk on the east coast of Hokkaido. At the river's lower reaches is the former Tokoro town, today the Tokoro area of Kitami City. The remains of ancient pit dwellings have been left here as unfilled depressions, and these dwellings number as many as 3,000. Although Mr. Onishi of Tokoro Town has never studied archaeology, he's convinced it's a rare, large-scale archaeological site, and he struggles alone to find collaborators to protect it. The turning point comes in 1956. Professor Hattori, from the Department of Linguistics at the University of Tokyo, is visiting Tokoro to study the Sakhalin Ainu language. Mr. Onishi all but drags him to the site. Professor Hattori isn't an archaeologist, but he is amazed at the scale of the site, which he describes as a pit city of a kind never before seen in Japan. He returns to Tokyo to inform Professor Komai of the Department of Archaeology, which results in the previously mentioned telegram. In 1957, the year after the telegram, excavations by members of the University of Tokyo's Faculty of Letters begin under the leadership of Professor Komai. It's revealed that various archaeological sites, including pit-dwelling depressions, are distributed throughout Tokoro. To conduct archaeological research and protect these sites, it's important to accurately determine their location and size. A lab and a facility with the ability to display the results of the research are constructed in Tokoro. Nobutake Onishi serves as the first superintendent of the Tokoro lab at the University of Tokyo. A research base, including a student accommodation, is developed, and as the University of Tokyo's Tokoro Research Laboratory, it becomes a place for practical education as well as for research and study. Excavations continue every year through to the present, and various findings are accumulated. Research conducted by the University of Tokyo reveals that archaeological sites number 130 in the entire Tokoro area, and that these are distributed mainly along the coast. As of 1970, surveys put the number of pit-dwelling depressions in the entire area at more than 3,000. This makes it one of the largest-scale archaeological sites in Japan, on a scale that's rare anywhere in the world. Based on these surveys by the University of Tokyo, 4 clusters of archaeological sites that include the remains of large pit dwellings are collectively designated as a National Historic Site under the name the Tokoro Site. The pit-dwelling depressions differ in shape depending on the period. Square depressions are from the Satsumon culture. Pentagons and hexagons are from the Okhotsk culture. And frying pan-like shapes with entranceways are from the Epijomon culture. The circular depressions are assumed to be from the Epijomon or Jomon culture. The most numerous of these depressions are square pit-dwelling remains of the Satsumon culture. They number approximately 2,000, two-thirds of the total. Many people must have lived here during this period. In Tokoro, traces of human activity from the Paleolithic period can be seen, but full-scale habitation didn't begin until the Jomon period. The Tokoro Shell Mound is a representative site of the Jomon period in Tokoro. This shell mound dates back to the end of the Middle Jomon period, approximately 4,500 years ago. The excavation of the Tokoro Shell Mound takes place in the 1950s and 1960s, shortly after the University of Tokyo begins its research in Tokoro. The Shell Mound, which stretches 200 meters long, has yielded the shells of shellfish used by Jomon people as food, as well as the bones of mammals, birds, and fish. Among them are animal species from warmer regions that no longer inhabit the current Tokoro area. This indicates that at the end of the Middle Jomon period, seawater temperatures around Tokoro were higher than they are now. The Tokoro Shell Mound is located on the bank of the Tokoro River, but the surrounding environment was very different when the mound was formed. A clue to the topographic changes in Tokoro is the formation of Lake Saroma, a lagoon on the Sea of Okhotsk. With the end of the last glacial period and temperatures warming across the globe, the area around Lake Saroma experienced a rapid rise in sea levels in what is known as the Jomon transgression, peaking in the early Jomon period approximately 6,000 years ago. These rising sea levels created an inner bay in the Tokoro area during the Jomon period. The Tokoro Shell Mound was formed at the middle of the Jomon period, later than the peak of the warming. At the time, the mound was on a brackish lake, and seawater temperatures appear to have remained high. Eventually, the sea levels dropped and sandbars gradually developed along the coast, forming land areas where people could live. Through such changes, the present topography emerged. During excavations, artifacts were also found in the upper and lower layers across the shell mound, indicating that the site was formed over a long period of time, from the initial Jomon period to the Satsumon culture period. Stratigraphic excavations of the Tokoro Shell Mound have significantly advanced our archaeological knowledge of the area. During the Epi-Jomon period after the Jomon period, what's now a large-scale archaeological site formed in the Tokoro area and is one of the finest archaeological sites in eastern Hokkaido. This is the Tokoro River Estuary Site. The site was discovered as a result of flood control work on the Tokoro River, and excavations were conducted by the former Tokoro Town Board of Education. The period of the site extends from the early Jomon period to the Ainu culture period, with the greatest number of dwellings and graves having been built during the Epi-Jomon period. More than 130 pit dwellings and 250 graves from this period have been found, and these are among the largest scale sites in eastern Hokkaido. Particularly noteworthy is the presence of graves with many burial goods. In Pit 470, a grave with the most burial goods, approximately 2,400 amber beads were excavated, as well as 5 large and small pottery pieces, stone tools such as arrowheads, knives, and axes, and stone objects that appear to have been made in the shape of a bear's head. Many other graves were found with large numbers of burial goods, including one with 13 pieces of pottery, one with 333 arrowheads, and one with a corpse, whose eye sockets held beads, as well as graves with rare items brought from other regions. It's likely that very influential people were at the Tokoro River Estuary Site during the Epi-Jomon period. Excavations at the Tokoro River Estuary Site, which covers approximately 40,000 square meters, were conducted over the course of 15 years and yielded many results that revolutionized research as of the 1980s. A site that archaeologically represents the Okhotsk and Ainu culture of Tokoro is the Tokoro-chashi site, which is part of the historic Tokoro Site. The University of Tokyo started excavating the site in the 1960s, and since then, 25 surveys have been conducted in collaboration with Kitami City. Here, the remains of a settlement of the Okhotsk culture and the ruins of fortifications known as chashi from the Ainu culture period of the 18th century have been excavated. At the Okhotsk Culture Settlement site, the remains of 6 pit dwellings were excavated. In one of these dwellings, Pit Dwelling 7, the cranial bones of 110 brown bears were excavated from a bone mound. This is a much greater number than at other sites, and it's thought that this site may have occupied a special position in the Okhotsk culture. Chashi of the Ainu culture period were created by digging L-shaped ditches on the edge of a terrace. Traces of fences were found on both sides of the ditches. The burial pits for men and sites for the ritual sending back of spirits have been excavated from the center of chashi sites. There have been few complete excavations of chashi sites, and the excavation of the Tokoro-chashi site serves as a valuable example of such an excavation. The Tokoro-chashi site was the second historic site in Tokoro to be open to the public, and it has been well maintained. Years of collaboration between the university and the local community have provided guidance on how best to preserve and utilize the site. Excavations continue. On this day, students from the University of Tokyo's Department of Archaeology are participating in an excavation as part of their training.
今までの調査では、低地や、砂丘上の集落を調査してきたことが多かったんですけども、今回は標高60メートルを超える高い台地の上にある集落大島2遺の調査をしています。でこの大島2遺の調査では、焼失住居、家を廃絶するときに火を放って焼いた住居ですね、それがたくさん出てきたり、それから大型の竪穴住居が集中して、出てきたりですね、また 低地や砂丘上の遺跡とはやや異なった性格の少し特殊な性格が明らかになってきています。今竪穴住居のかまどの調査をしているんですけれども、こうした中でもまた新しいことがいろいろ分かってくるかと思います。大島二遺跡のような性格の解明にあたってはやはり今まで60年間調査を蓄積してきたその中での研究の蓄積や比較といったものが非常に重要になってきたかと思います。今後もこういう形で調査を継続していきたいと考えています。
When Professor Komai of the University of Tokyo, who was in charge of leading the excavations from the beginning, first saw the sites in Tokoro, he said, rather than waging a short-term campaign, it's necessary to conduct long-term excavations here over an extended period. True to his word, excavations continue to this day, more than 60 years after the research started. The long-running research by the University of Tokyo began with a single telegram. The results continue to make significant contributions to the study of Hokkaido's history and culture.